Hi there, it's Dr. Saira, and I am back with my show, Ask Dr. Saira. And this show is all about answering the questions that you have that you've sent to me. So, for years and years and years, people would write to me and call me and text me and send me all kinds of questions. And some of the conversations we had that came out of those questions was so rich and powerful. And so, we decided to bring all of that text and phone and email and Facebook and Instagram and all the places I'm getting questions into one place, which is this YouTube show called Ask Dr. Saira. So you get to send me a question and I will answer it for you on the show. So let's get started. Today's question, it's a question that's very close to my heart because it feels like the person who's asking the question is asking the question for me because this is kind of my story. So here we go. Hi, Dr. Saira. I've always considered myself to be a nice person. I like helping others, and I come from a very family-centered culture. However, I often find that by being nice all the time, I end up ignoring or compromising my own needs and wants. How can I be compassionate without feeling drained? And how do I deal with the ensuing guilt from not being nice all the time? Kindly, Serena. Exhausted. So Serena, exhausted. It is exhausting. It is exhausting to be that person who's always expected to be nice and kind and generous and thoughtful and have to take, everything else that's thrown at you by other people who are not necessarily living those values. And so for this question, I'd want to back it up a little bit and talk about the difference between a role and a calling. Okay. So when we're very young, we start taking on certain characteristics and qualities that we think will be desirable by our family. So, if you come from a family that's very outgoing and outspoken and loud, then you'll start kind of behaving that way and kind of testing that, is this okay, is this acceptable? And that testing usually happens around 18 months to 2 years. So it's very, very young. It's pre-verbal. And at a very young age, we start feeling like certain things are celebrated and accepted, and certain things are frowned upon and not accepted. And so with this nice thing, what I'm suspecting happened for you, Serena, is that in your family system and in your school system and as you grew up, being nice was considered a good thing. And people who were nice were rewarded. Now what happens is when that niceness goes from just a quality and a calling and a kind of who you are into a role where I have to be nice no matter how I'm feeling, no matter what my actual inner self is saying, I have to be nice. And it's funny because she actually puts nice in quotation marks. I'm a nice person. Then it can become tiring because what's happening is now you're giving something that you don't even, it's like there's nothing in here to give and you're just feeling drained because your tank isn't full. You're frustrated, you're angry, you're irritable, you're just kind of disconnected, but you're expected to be nice. Now, who's expecting you to be nice? That's something to ask yourself. Is it your parents? Is it your school teachers? Is it your colleagues? Is it your partner? Is it your children? Or is it also yourself? Is it yourself saying, hey, you, Serena, you better be nice or else, right? And so most of us have this voice in our head that's bullying us and pushing us around and forcing us to behave in ways that we think the world will receive, but we don't actually feel that way. So let me give you an example. Have you ever had the situation where you ask someone to do something for you and they're like, so say you ask someone, would you mind giving me a ride to my kid's school? My car is not working. And they're like, sure. How does that make you feel? Okay, they're being nice. They're doing what you ask them to do, but energetically, they don't really want to do it, and you know it. You can feel it, and it doesn't feel good when somebody is just being nice and their heart isn't in it. And so, Serena, if you think about your own life and how many times you've gone along with something and just, said okay and tried to be nice, but you're energetically, you were sending off this completely different vibe. And people feel that. That's like, we're wired to feel that. We're wired, communication is only 30% the words coming out of our mouth. The other 70-something percent, I think it's 33% or 34% is just the verbal words that are coming out of our mouth. Everything else is our body language, our posture, eye contact, that feel, that something that people, you can't put a finger on. So what's your communication saying about how you really feel? right? So by being nice, you're actually doing a disservice to the other person because now they're getting a mixed message. You talked about a very family-centered culture and where, you have guilt if you don't actually do the nice thing. And I can totally relate to that. I come from a very family-centered culture, and it took me a very, very long time to understand that if I'm unhappy, I actually make everybody else miserable too. I didn't get that. I thought, well, I can just suck it up and put my needs aside because the family is more important. But then I noticed that actually the family is miserable when I'm miserable, right? Because I show up grumpy, I show up irritable, I'm nice, I have this happy little face on, but underneath they can feel that I'm not really there. I don't really want to be there. And so I would suggest to you, Serena, is to start looking at what's underneath the nice. And when you start digging around here, it can get a little bit dark and kind of disturbing because you might find that underneath the nice is there's a part of you that doesn't really give a shit. Like just doesn't care. Just actually wishes that, everybody else would just figure their stuff out and do their own thing. My alarm is going off, which means I'm talking too much. So I'm going to just wrap this up really quick. Here we go. The guilt is a distraction from what's really going on here. The guilt is just your way of beating yourself up. Like there's no value in guilt. What you want to think about is how do I continue to serve and love and be there for my family, but also ensure that my tank is full, right? Also ensure my tank is full. Not at their expense, right? Of course not. You don't want to say, I'm more important than everybody else. That's not okay either. But how do I ensure my tank is full? And so one of the simple ways that I do that is I get regular manicures. I get my nails done. And that's like my little bit of time where I'm just on my own, doing my own thing, filling up my tank so that I can be there for my family. I can be there for my friends. I can be there for my clients, and I'm really available. And I'm not just nice, because nice isn't always what people need. Sometimes they need real. And I would suggest to you, Serena, that maybe it's time to get real rather than nice. So those are my thoughts for you today on the question that you asked. Please think about sending me a question of your own, and please send me comments in the section below. We'd love to hear your thoughts about being nice and how being nice or not nice has served you and what ideas that you might have so that we can continue the conversation. If you do want to send me a question, it's connect@talktosaira.com. Love to hear from you and talk to you soon. It's your life and only